Mm. Hello and welcome back, beauties, to our 10th Phoenix Priestess podcast, our 10th episode. 10, the number of rebirth, 10, the number that initiates again, 10, the number that has received the journey of 1 through 9. 10 is literally the first breath of when you were born. It's the second breath when you are reborn and you remember again that you were asleep for however long. It doesn't matter. But that for the time being, you remembered to wake again. 10 is a magical number. You'll be hearing this in this podcast, being weaved in and out through the offerings that I teach and I support. But most importantly, as women, as mothers, I invite us to reclaim our sacred feminine mystery wisdom. And one of those sacred codes that are embedded in our sacred body system is the magical number 10. After conceiving a love, a child, the ability to birth a being, it takes 10 months. And so, in my spiritual journey and my spiritual reawakening, I really started to recognize how everything started to come in patterns of 10. It took 10 months for my sacred feminine remembrance. And it doesn't mean that it just took 10 months because it's been layer after layer and season after season. But there were so many times where I noticed that something huge would happen after 10 months. Yesterday, I saw a beloved soul sister, and I literally just calculated today, and she literally had a rebirth happen after 10 months of me coming back into contact with her. And everywhere that I look with my sisters, and when I start to ask them these questions, I start to recognize that the patterns are gifting us. They're like gifting us a code. And it's not so much that we have to know what's going to be birthed or rebirthed, but it's just the knowing that a process like a caterpillar to a butterfly will emerge. And so in this 10th episode, I want to share with you the death of the roles, like the death of the roles that can exist from our birth to possibly then a time when we start to recognize that those roles no longer fit. And so there is a death season with these roles. And there's also what I noticed was when I allowed the death of those roles to be, I noticed this, this sacred theme that routines and rituals after me recognizing started to save my life. And now I can, in the last couple of weeks, I've been silent because I have been going through an internal process. And what I am coming to really take ownership of is that one of the greatest ways in which I can help others is obviously to break down the debris, to allow death to happen. But one of the things that I love doing is supporting women and especially mothers who are mystics, who are artists, who are healers, who are givers, who are creators of communities and of work and of things in their lives, to keep creating new routines and rituals in every season, every day, moment by moment, that are in alignment with the art that wants to be born through them. Because I noticed that that is what truly did save me after in episode 9, I share a lot about my spiritual awakening, and I can't remember how much now I shared about my dark night of the soul. You all can remind me if y'all want, and it doesn't matter. But in this episode, I kind of want to share a little bit of like what happened after, like what was the process like of shedding those roles, and what came about after I shed those roles? What is the alchemy? What are the routines and the rituals that I do every day? And it doesn't mean that I have a perfect blueprint that I'm trying to sell you. I do believe that every single woman is in a time of remembering that she herself is her own sacred satiation sanctuary. That sanctuary lives inside of her, that she knows what satiates her, that she knows what is sacred, and that no other woman knows what that is. We can be mirrors, we can be igniters, we could be liberators, we can inspire, but we can't choose. And I don't believe we're in an era where we have been before as women and as mothers and as sisters, where the codes have been that we have been living in relationship as community, as doing together, as unfolding and allowing each other to hold each other, to be seen, to nourish, to be present in those moments where we need each other in rituals and ceremony and all types of things that we do in the empowerment healing community. But I do believe that we're coming into a time where women women are starting to ask themselves, is this really something that I want to do? Like, how can the same outcome happen? Or like, can I receive that which I see externally that just looks so yummy that I want, that I don't have? Can that also happen in a way in which it feels more in alignment with me? And let me explain a little bit. So I'll share with you some of the roles that had to die, and then I'll hopefully get a little bit more clarity to see how I can share more to what I mean for you and in your life and in our lives, of how we can move forward in sisterhood, in community, supporting each other, but also allowing ourselves the freedom truly to have our own sacred reawakening journey, and to allow it to look and be lived out very uniquely, because I do believe that each one of us, soul mandala is perfectly unique. So that means that your journey is never going to look like mine. So, anyways, number one, the role that had to die was the death of my yoga teacher, the death of my healer, the death of my shaman, the death of um, my hands-on healing, my ability to be in a state where a person could receive a healing, be it through yoga, be it through shamanic sessions. And when I noticed a huge change, I was in a yin yoga class, and I heard, this is the last one. Like, you've ended it. Like, this is it. And I had the most beautiful teacher, Sarah, I think is her name. And she knew that I always already did what I wanted to do in that class. It was a restorative class, not a yin class. It was a restorative class. So you'd get into these delicious postures, like queen's posture, and you just like lay there. And then she'd move you. She'd invite you. She wouldn't invite you. She would move you into the next session, because I'm a yoga teacher, right? She'd move you through direction into the next one. But my body was already in a season where I knew I wanted to stay in that posture, sometimes the whole class. And so I'd already talked with her, and I'd already told her, that's me. And she always just always embraced me with so much love and zero judgment. And so I loved her from the beginning. But on that day, I heard, this is it. This is it. And I can't remember if that was literally my last class or if I came a few times, but I do remember telling her that I was done. And what I meant was, when saying that, was like I was done with taking yoga classes from other people. What that meant was I was now entering a season, and I already did do it, but entering a season of more deeply insourcing my own sovereignty, of more deeply day by day decided, what posture do I want to do at what time? What do I not want to do? Like, I don't want to drive to the yoga class anymore. Like it was just like, how do I integrate that into my daily life rather than having to escape my life in order to receive that I get in that session that I feel like I can't give to myself in my daily life. So this is a parentheses moment, because I did a tarot reading for myself for this call, and I was like, why did this poem come through? So I didn't read it in the beginning, and I was just like, okay, I'll just let it be, and it'll be read whenever it wants to be read. And now it's when it wants to be read. So this is a poem from Soul Satiation. You can download my book for free in the PDF on my website, jimenamosquera.com, and it's called Deja Vu. To run towards you, my escape route, reminds me of remembrance. You already live in me. Deja vu, both can be true. So yes, it's beautiful to all of us who need to leave ourselves, need to leave our lives, need to leave whatever we're doing right now to go put it in our schedule, to go do the thing, to go have the journey, to go have the whatever, to then receive the thing. Yes, that is beautiful. And also, we do know that we are seeking for outside of ourselves already lives inside of us. And so every time we're going to leap into a new rebirth, right? A new number 10, a new rebirth, there's a complete cellular um eh, eh, what's it called, like reanimation. And so you have to be deeply in relationship with what that animation looks like, what that storyline looks like and feels like. And so the death of my yoga teacher invited me to come into a season that was like, I believe, a year or 2 years before COVID. And that invited me into a season where I'd go on hikes in the redwoods, and I do yoga on trees and on roots and on rocks and on the earth and in my bed. And I already did all of these things, but it's as if we allow ourselves like a deeper hug with ourselves, and we say, we got you. We got you. Like that I'm looking for outside of myself is completely integrated inside of myself. And obviously, something beautiful that happens when we have those moments of integration is, yeah, sure, we can then go possibly at another season to like go take another yoga class. But it is the sacred act of honoring the death, of like, I'm no longer a yoga teacher, I'm no longer a yoga student in the old ways in which I was. And the routines that saved my life was then recognizing that my body loved movement, and obviously also restorative when it needed it and when it wanted it. And that with my moon in Cancer, like really, really recognizing, that's what I mean, like our soul mandala, what I help women and mothers see in my one-on-one soul speak sessions, that we are so unique. And the more we really, really just love up and embrace our uniqueness, the more we make peace with it. And we have to like, we can let go of the comparison disease. And so now, for example, this morning, I did hip openers and I did some twists, like as a yoga teacher, but I walked. And so my routine now has shifted to I love to feel the sand underneath my feet. I love to feel the warmth. I love to feel the water, the cold water at different moments hit underneath my feet. I love to feel my legs in relationship to the sun that's hitting it, and the wind and the birds and the sounds. And so those are things that I could not receive in a yoga session. And so the routines that I saw that I needed to start integrating when I left that was just doing it more in my day to day, because deja vu both can be true. I don't have to escape. I can do it in my life, in my everyday life. And then I started to do it by going on hikes, by doing it more in my home. I've never gone back. So I've never gone back. I started off with hatha, then flow and ashtanga. Then, I mean, the plethora from tantra to kundalini to yin, iyengar. But the takeaway, the truth takeaway, then in every new season, it's really important to pause. We're still in Pisces season, and it's a moment of pause in Pisces season. Even with Pisces being like open, united, like the sign that unites us all, the sign that allows the dissolving, like that moment when the caterpillar literally is going back into liquid, and there's a pause, or maybe there isn't a pause, but in the human sense, there's that moment where you reckon and you thank where you've been, and you thank who you've received from, and you thank that you've showed up. And now you're open to a new possibility, to experience that movement or that pause or that connection or whatever it is that you seek from that specific role. And you now see, where does it have to be reanimated, revitalized? What vitamin, like I'm calling it now the vitality vitamin. So what vitality vitamin do you have to take? Do you have to drink? Do you have to eat? Do you have to anoint yourself with? The next death of the role of overgiving as a mother. How it took me so long. Overgiving, over smothering, over controlling, over. In my mind, I was giving. In my mind, I was showing up. In my mind, I was being present. And I'm not going to go so much so into my story of like my own relationship to my mother or my life, because I think that in this situation, the important factor was I was frustrated. I was resentful. Oh my God. I was so burned out all of the time. And so, in my mind, at this very second, one of the things that came to mind was there was a moment where I started to feel resentful towards cooking and having to cook and cooking these delicious homemade meals where everybody who I cooked for, including my family and friends, they always loved them. So I was always giving. And when I would, and when women would give to me, then I would feel the obligation. Nobody had asked me to, but I felt the internal obligation that I needed to give back. So I needed to cook more. Literally. And that's the way that I gave back. And that even died one day where I was like, damn it, I don't feel like cooking for other people. Like, I just want to give when I want to give to somebody, and I want people to give to me when they want to give however they want. And then it just like literally clicked. And I was like, oh, people were already doing that. Nobody was like expecting anything in return. And I realized I was surrounded by these beautiful women and mothers who were not asking me for anything in return. They were literally just always giving to me and then just allowing me to be. And the routines that saved my life with that was I started to ask myself, what do I want to eat? When do I want to eat it? How much do I want to eat? And noticing the tracking of the seasons. And so, like, for example, right now, I don't have a specific schedule of eating at a specific time. It's really about listening to my body, asking myself what I want, foreseeing like in the week, because I only do shopping about once a week to once every like 10 days. And sometimes I can even go with like 2 weeks. Um, and so just like foreseeing what type of foods like nourish me that are whole foods or or um not whole foods plant-based, but just like like nourishing foods for my soul and my body. Um And so I say this because as a mother, also the death of thinking that we had to sit down at a certain time, thinking that I needed to always cook, thinking that I didn't want to hire somebody to actually cook for us. I wanted my children to cook for themselves. I wanted them to then start sometimes cooking for us as well. And that's exactly what happened. And those were the routines that now literally have saved my life. And so when I say save, like the routines that satiate my life instead of saved, it's like the routines that satiate my life is trusting that I can feed myself whatever it is that I'm feeling in the moment. And when I feel like cooking for us, I invite us to sit down and I ask my team, when do you have a spot open? And then we find a spot open. And then it's normally lunch because my husband doesn't eat dinner. So just notice, like, I'm just giving you the little nuances, but like I invite you and us to really tune into your particular home, your particular unit, starting first and foremost with yourself. And so that one weaves in beautifully into the death of my role as caretaker and savior and giving, for example, in my children's schools and communities and women's communities and all types of communities. um, and that one I'm going to tie it into the death. So that was like the death of like my role, like I'm the archetype or would be the caretaker or the savior. Um, And the previous one, the death of me overgiving as a mother, it's like the shadow of the great mother. It's like when you um, just overgive and you're either bleeding out, literally like you're bleeding out, or you like get diarrhea or you get constipated. Um, where you're not honoring your second and third chakra, like both of them. Like number three, like the confidence to say, like, actually, like I want to do this for me, not for y'all, and not in like a bad way, but and sometimes you'll feel that you'll be like, I'm gonna give to me because I'm just so like I'm fucking done with it. I'm fucking done with the thing that I'm doing that I no longer want to do. So I'm just sharing with you all these roles so you can just take some moments of pause to see what roles, what archetypes you feel like you are done with, like you're done with them. They're done with you and you're done with them. And now they've done you a favor. So all of these archetypes and all of these roles have gifted you something, have gifted us something. The death of the caretaker and of the savior and the children and the overgiving was the part of me, shadow of Pisces, of like no boundaries. We are in Pisces season, hence why I'm sharing this with everyone. With like no boundaries. It's like I'll give to myself when the moment is right. And yes, I've just literally said that I'm doing that. But if I'm doing that from my wounded parts, then I'm not ever going to receive because there's literally going to be leaks and leaks and leaks within my system, my energetic system that can't contain satiation. because it's never enough. It's like the shadow, like if there's no boundary at all, then it just literally like the water like falls and there's like no container to support it. Um, so that death, those deaths of me choosing my children's school, because what happened was when I let go of the role of having to save, like, for example, children from minorities that were going to the school that we were giving, and there's always this, in that sector of like the talk of like the child who is needing more support, the child who is lacking in this, the child who hasn't had this exposure. And yes, those things are all true, but in essence, we're all whole. And in essence, we're all perfectly in divine timing. So in that system, and I'm talking specifically about the conventional schooling system, like it just doesn't fit because we've put literally all of these beings together, and we can't be the judges of who's doing better or how to like, help somebody be better, because then we get ourselves into the judge archetype and the shadow judge and the shadow savior. And so in that process, I had a death of realizing I wanted to take out my children, and I took out my children from their public Montessori charter school, and we unschooled for a couple of years. I'd say we're like into the fifth year, and my youngest is going part-time to now the school, the online private project-based school that they all go to. But the first few years, when that death happened of me not having to like overgive to other people and just like tend my body, tend my children, tend my home, tend us, it was a beautiful time, and it was hard the first year, and we did it the first year before COVID. So actually, with the time COVID came, like I was so on point. I was supported by the most beautiful community of like-minded, if not like-minded families, families that didn't push each other or push onto each other certain ways of being and doing things. And so when that death of me choosing for my children, like, this is me giving in this specific way, this is me saving, this community, this is me choosing for my children. What started to happen in the last couple of years when they started to choose for themselves, like, actually, I want to go to this school because this is what, I want to do. And I spoke very clearly. You'll hear that in the episode where I interview Julia and Mandy with the shame shackles. I believe that's the one where when we really allow others to choose what feels right for them, that's because we're at a moment that we're allowing ourselves to choose what feels right for us without shaming ourselves. We freed our shame shackles. And so the routines that now satiate my life is I practice not choosing for my beloveds. If my children wanted to get vaccinated, if they wanted to travel because of the laws that were happening, like if a child wants to start doing, now full-time rather than part-time, like if a child wants to do their life in their own way. I mean, there are things where I'm like, okay, that yes, but you know what? I do see that you do. I'm feeling like you need more responsibility in this area, and then we'll talk about it, in whatever time. Yes, that's a total parentheses. That happens for sure in my life and in my relationship with my children. But what I'm trying to say is that exhale, where I don't have to hold everybody's life and their choices on my back, that allowed me to then tune into, I love having ease in my home. I love having my children in our home, and they're still homes, they still do their online schooling, so they're still at home. My hubby also works at home. And so that going out to big communities, to big settings, it really honored, and the routines that saved me were the space and the silence that my mystic needs in order to feel satiated. And so the routines that saved my life was I no longer drive as much. I no longer expose myself to huge groups or communities or gatherings or situations in which groups do things in this way or that way for a certain amount of period. It doesn't mean I can't go like visit somebody. I do, but the routine that satiates me now is living from that spaciousness of flow and freedom, where the people who are closest to me have the freedom for them to go in and out of their own communities and creations, without me having to manage or me having to be in the communities that like the death was at, like me in relationship to bigger communities. And that one's one that I literally in the last couple of weeks and years and months have had been going deeper and deeper and deeper into. And that takes me to the death of a desire that I had recently for a long time of moving to a specific place and recognizing that hubby was a no to that, and recognizing the parts of me that didn't believe that I could receive deja vu. Both can be true. Like that I was attached to in that image of what I wanted also lives in me. How can I live in that state that I feel like I have to have? And if I can't have it, then I feel like I can't be with you. I'm talking like with hubby. And that's not a theme that I live truly in now. But my escape route as a South node in Pisces has always been to escape from conflict, escape from drama, escape from trauma, escape. And so I literally had some of the biggest ahas in the last 48 hours where I really started to micro look at like what was it about that place that just keeps calling me. I was like, oh, like I feel free. Okay, so when what situations do I feel free? What does it look like? Where do I have that right now? Remember when I said the remembrance of like going inside and remembering that that is inside of you. Like when you escape and you think that it's only there, it's kind of like when you want to escape your life and go on a retreat or on to a vacation. It's because like you were yearning for something that you don't have every day in your life. And so the invitation of this 10th episode is to remember and remind ourselves that in